Hello, Mr. Fridman. This is in response to your almost 3 hours long podcast with Mr. Modi. 2 hours, 56 minutes, and a few seconds actually. I wonder what your compulsion was. Did you do it for money? Or maybe you wanted a bunch of Indian subscribers to grow your YouTube channel. Young Indians like Dhruv Rathi, have almost 28 million subscribers, while you only had 4.5 million before the Modi podcast. At the time of recording this, your subscriber base has swollen to 4.66 million. So was it that? Attract a lot of Indian attention and rapidly grow your channel? Or perhaps it was a little merry-go-round of quid pro quos. Let me explain. See, it's well known that your YouTube career took off thanks to Elon Musk. And as a return of favor, Musk could have asked you to do a podcast with Modi so that Modi gets the international attention he desperately craves for. And in return, Musk gets the concession for Tesla when it comes to India. And you get a big fat paycheck and a big bunch of Indian subscribers. And everyone goes home happy. As far-fetched it may sound, it's not totally implausible, Trump too has shared the podcast for wider reach. After all, he's looking for business and concessions from Modi too. Or is it a more sinister reason, perhaps? Just maybe you are one of those Muslim-hating Jews and connect to Modi for that reason. After all, you let Netanyahu get away with a lot of lies on your podcast, right? Anyway, whatever it is, I may never know for sure, but what I do know is that you have now become a willing collaborator in Modi's magnum opus, the project to install himself as the greatest Indian ever, which I must warn you is bound to fail. Make no mistake about it. See, everyone knows that Modi hasn't had even one press conference in India in his 11 years as Prime Minister. The only Indian media he interacts with is what we Indians call as Godi media, the media which sits on Modi's lap. So for Modi to give you so much time, well, congratulations on being the first international recruit of the Godi Media Club. While Modi has big number of Indian cheerleaders, he was sorely missing a foreign one. And you fit the bill perfectly. Now, every Indian, whether he loves or hates Modi, knows instinctively that neither your questions nor Modi's answers were impromptu. Your questions, if at all they were yours, must have been thoroughly vetted by Modi's team and tailored to fit him. His previous impromptu interactions with the media have scarred him permanently and changed his relationship with media forever. Here, have a look. This was in 2007.
Mr. Modi, let's start by talking about you. In the 6 years that you've been Chief Minister of Gujarat, the Rajiv Gandhi Foundation has declared Gujarat to be the best administered state. India today, on 2 separate occasions, has declared that you are the most efficient Chief Minister. And yet, despite that, people still call you to your face a mass murderer, and they accuse you of being prejudiced against Muslims. Do you have an image problem?
I think it's not proper to say that people. There are 2 or 3 persons, those who used to talk in this terminology. And I always say, God bless them.
You're saying this is a conspiracy of 2-3 people only?
I have not said so.
But you're saying it's only 2-3 people.
This is what I have information. It's not the people's voice.
Can I point out to you that in September 2003, the Supreme Court said they had lost faith in the Gujarat government? In April 2004, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court in open court said that you were like a modern-day Nero who looks the other side when helpless children and innocent women are burnt. The Supreme Court seems to have a problem with you.
Current, I have a small request. Please go to the Supreme Court judgment. And is there anything in writing? I'll be happy to know everything.
It wasn't in writing, you're absolutely right.
If
it was
it
an
is in
observation.
judgment,
It is an observation.
If it is in judgment, then I'll be happy to give you the answer.
But you mean a criticism in court by the Chief Justice doesn't matter?
This is my simple request to you. Please go to the court judgment, find out the sentence which you are quoting, and I will be happy that if the people of the India should know it.
Okay, it wasn't just open comment made by the Chief Justice. In August 2004, the Supreme Court reopened over 2,100 cases out of a total of around 4,600, almost 40%. And they did so because they believed justice hadn't happened in Modi's Gujarat.
I'll be happy, and I'm happy because of this judgment. Because ultimately the court of law will take the decision.
I'll tell you what the problem is. Even 5 years after the Gujarat killings of 2002, the ghost of Godhra still haunts you. Why have you not done more to allay that ghost?
This I gave it to the media persons like Karan Thapar. Let them do and let them enjoy.
Can I suggest something to you?
I have no problem.
Why can't you say that you regret the killings that happened? Why can't you say that maybe the government should have done more to protect the Muslims?
What I have to say, I have said at that time, and you can find out my statements.
Just say it again.
Not necessary. I have to talk about the in 2007 everything. What you want to talk?
But by not saying it again, by not letting people hear the message repeatedly, you're allowing an image that is contrary to the interest of Gujarat to continue. It's in your hands to change it.
I'll have to rest. Water. Yeah.
पानी आपके पीछे है।
दोस्ती बनी रहे, अपनी दोस्ती बनी रहे। I'll be happy. You came here. I'm happy. I'm thankful to you. I can't help this. It's okay. Your things are आपके ideas हैं. आप बोलते रहिए, करते रहिए. Your 3-4 questions I will let enjoy. So I can't.
But Modi sahab.
Yeah, please.
Modi sahab.
देखो मैं दोस्ताना संबंध बनाना चाहता हूँ आप उसको कोशिश कीजिए
मुझे एक चीज समझाएं सर I'm not talking about doing anything wrong I'm saying why can't you correct the image
देखिए आपने this is not the time इसके लिए आपने 2002 में मुझे मिले होते 2003 में मिले होते मैं सब करूँगा
okay then one second
So did you hear Modi tell the journalist that he should have come to him in 2002-2003? But when a BBC journalist met him in October 2002, almost 8 months after the Gujarat riots, see what happened.
So you're now coming up to elections. There seems to me to be a state in turmoil. We're seeing repeated violence. We're seeing people living in fear. What has gone wrong with this breakdown in law and order here?
I think you have to correct your information first. The state is very, very peaceful.
So the Muslims who would say that they are still terrified, they are still frightened to go back to their homes, they still feel that the people who murdered their relatives have not been brought to justice, what would you say to them?
I'm not agree with your analysis. I'm not agree with your information. This absolutely misguided information to you. From where you have picked up this type of garbage, I do not know.
Some people have been accusing your government of not doing enough to stop this, of not protecting Muslims even now.
These are also false propaganda made by our opponents, and you are also a captive of this false propaganda.
Can you explain more? Who is perpetuating this false propaganda? The information I'm reporting is taken from what I have seen with my own eyes, both at the times of the riots and now.
Those who are our opponents.
And the independent reports that have already been published into what has happened.
They have no right to talk about the internal matter of any government. I'm very, very clear in my mind. If they have done wrong.
Some would say it is a human right. There is a general international
please
interest.
Don't try to preach us the human rights. We know what the human rights are. You Britishers should not preach us the human rights.
When you look back over the last month, you've been the leader of this state through a very difficult period. Do you think there's anything that you should have done differently?
Yes. One area where I was very, very weak, and that was how to handle the media.
Now you know why Modi has been strictly advised against doing impromptu media interactions or press conferences. And we all know that in such a situation, an honest conversation may not be possible, especially if it's with someone like Modi. I mean, aren't you the one who said that I believe in the power of tough, honest, empathetic conversations to increase the amount of love in the world? Instead, you are having these pre-designed, premeditated conversations with despots like Netanyahu and Modi, which are neither tough and nor honest. It's really pointless in the larger scheme of things, unless we just look at the number of your subscribers or the amount of wealth you amass personally. See, I completely get it. It's basic human nature, an extension of the survival instinct inherent to all living beings. That is to try and avoid confrontation with the mighty and the powerful. But weak human minds stoop to levels below. They always side with the mighty and the powerful, try to be seen close to them. But guess what? These things unravel pretty quickly. I'm sure you know about Hitler and his rise to power in Germany and his bombastic plan for a 1,000-year Reich. So while your Jewish forefathers were being hounded, majority of Germans were pouring love and admiration on Hitler at some level. Many of them wanted to be close to him, have access to him, and then in just over a decade, everyone with access to Hitler came to be treated as a war criminal. So you see what I'm saying. Based on your questions to Modi, I sense that your understanding of history is quite shallow. You may be great at computers or AI, though Wikipedia wants me to believe otherwise, but I'll give you that. Computers and AI may be your thing, but you don't understand history. You may possess historical information, but you can't process it particularly well. Remember what Modi said?
I think it's important for us to clearly understand the difference between information and knowledge. Some people mistakenly confuse information with knowledge, carrying around large amounts of information. But I don't believe information alone equals knowledge. Knowledge is something deeper. It gradually evolves through processing, reflection, and understanding.
Because if you did understand history, you wouldn't collaborate with the likes of Netanyahu or Modi, for that matter, just because they seem very powerful at the moment. You won't have these conversations which at the surface seem very deep and somber, given the ambience you create. But in reality, they are so shallow and fake and frankly very, very dishonest. I mean, the dishonesty in your podcast with Modi is off the charts. Saw a post on X which said it was dishonest pro max. I think that's a good description. So without further ado, let's get into the specifics, okay? Now that opening line, Mr. Fridman.
So I should also say I'm fasting right now. It's been almost 2 days, 45 hours. So just water, no food. In honor of this conversation, just to get in the right mindset, get into the spiritual level. I've read that you often fast for many days. Can you explain why you fast and where does your mind go when you fast?
First of all, I'm truly pleasantly surprised and honored that you're fasting. All the more because it feels like you're fasting as a tribute of respect for me. So I express my deepest gratitude to you for doing this.
I mean, what the? Were you really fasting for 45 hours in honor of this conversation? Does it even make any sense? See, I would have taken you at face value, but I looked you up, found your antecedents, that you have worked at Google and MIT, that you faked a research paper to support Elon Musk and Tesla. In turn, Musk appeared on your podcast that made your YouTube career take off, even though your research work was trashed and removed from the MIT website. So with those sort of antecedents, I hope you would forgive me for not taking you at face value. So no matter how deep or spiritual some people may find it, I find it fake that someone would fast for 45 hours in preparation of or in honor of his conversation with another person who's known to fast regularly. To me, it doesn't make sense. And it's just my gut feeling. I can't prove it unless I find a member of your team who's ready to spill the beans. But here's what I think further. If I understand Modi correctly, which I think I do. This may have come as a suggestion from Modi's team for you to say such a thing right at the beginning. I mean, that's the kind of thing every megalomaniac wants to hear. It's music to their ears. Anyway, as I said before, I can't prove it. I'll wait for the day when you either become so honest enough or you see profit in it to tell the world how Modi's team made you say that silly line. Now, Modi isn't known for being a man of science. But even if one is not a man of science, you could still have a scientific temperament. But unfortunately, Modi doesn't even have that. Here, take a look.
मित्रों, मैं विज्ञान को तो ज्यादा समझता भी नहीं, जानता भी नहीं। बर्तन को उल्टा करके उसमें छेद करके एक पाइप डाल दी और जो गटर से गैस निकलता था वो पाइपलाइन से उसके अपने चाय के ठेले में ले लिया और वो चाय बनाने के लिए उसी गैस का उपयोग कर करके चाय बनाता था। सिंपल सी टेक्नोलॉजी।
लेकिन मैंने कहा इतने क्लाउड है, बारिश हो रही है, तो एक बेनिफिट है कि हम राडार से बच सकते हैं।
एक्चुअली सर्दी ज्यादा नहीं है, उनकी उम्र बढ़ने के कारण उनकी सहने की शक्ति कम हो गई। वैसे ही ये क्लाइमेट चेंज नहीं हुआ है, हम चेंज हो गए।
ये ऊर्जा क्रांति कर रही है हिंदुस्तान में और इसलिए न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी, सोलर एनर्जी, विंड एनर्जी। मेरी जो छोटी सी समझ है उसके हिसाब से मुझे लगता है
वो हवा में से वाटर शक करके अगर क्लीन ड्रिंकिंग वाटर भी प्रोड्यूस कर सकें। दूसरा मेरा सुझाव है, हम हवा में से ऑक्सीजन सेपरेट कर सकते हैं इस टरबाइन के माध्यम से ही।
So you get an idea? So true to his form, Modi dropped another gem in your podcast.
You may have noticed, as you said, you've been fasting on water for 2 days. Every single one of your senses, especially smell, touch, and taste, becomes highly sensitive. You may even notice the subtle aroma of water itself. Something you probably never noticed before when drinking it. कि आपको पानी की भी स्मेल आती हो। पहले कभी पानी पीते होंगे तो स्मेल अनुभव नहीं किया होगा।
Pure drinking water is odorless. That's basic, that's a given. See, what Modi said may sound particularly deep to some people, but to me it seems very fake and dishonest that at some heightened level of spiritual or sensory awareness, which results from fasting, odorless, pure drinking water will suddenly develop a smell. If that be so, I really do not want to achieve that state because I like my water odorless. But if Modi is having this experience, I can only make an intelligent guess as to what's happening. See, Modi came to power in 2014 after making a slew of bombastic promises, one of which was that he would clean the Ganga river, which is not just our national river, but religiously the most important amongst all Indian rivers, and is supposedly the most polluted river in the world. Modi promised to clean the Ganga in quick time. Within a month of assuming office, his government launched a mission called Namami Gange, meaning I bow to the Ganga. Namami Gange is an integrated conservation mission, a flagship program of the Modi government, launched in 2014 with a budget outlay of 20,000 crores, approximately 2.5 billion USD, to accomplish the twin objectives of effective abatement of pollution and conservation and rejuvenation of the national river Ganga. The mission was initially approved for a period until March 2021 and has now been extended until March 2026. The expenditure up to February 2024, as per government data, is over 38,000 crores, $4.5 billion approximately. This was until last year. Now it's 2025. So 11 years since 2014 and well over $4.5 billion later, Ganga remains polluted. But Modi is a different breed. In his head, if he launched a mission, it must be successful. Therefore, Namami Gange is successful, Ganga is clean, the water is not smelly. That's what he must be saying to himself constantly and believing in it truly. But at some heightened level of awareness induced by his fasting, he can still smell the contaminated water. I think that's what is happening. Anyway, next up is Modi's new story about his mother. I don't want to comment on it, but I only wish to show you a clip from his town hall at the Facebook headquarters 9 years ago. The full video is available on YouTube, so a clip from that alongside what he said on your podcast. See for yourself.
My mother is still there. She's over 90 years old now. She does everything herself. Even now, she does all her work herself. She's not educated, but through television she knows what's happening around the world through the news. When we were small, what we used to do to get by was that we used to go to houses, our neighbors' houses nearby. We used to clean the dishes, fill water. Do hard chores. So you can imagine what a mother had to do. What a mother had to do to raise her children.
My mother possessed an innate spirit of caring for others' well-being. It was woven into the very fabric of her being. She possessed knowledge of traditional remedies and healing practices and would treat children with these home remedies. Every morning before sunrise around 5 o'clock, she would start treating them. So all the children and their parents would gather at our home, little children crying, and we had to wake up early because of it. Meanwhile, my mother would continue treating them with care. This spirit of service, in a way, was nurtured through these experiences. A sense of empathy for society, the desire to do good for others. These values were instilled in me from my family.
I will let you decide which one is true or if both are true, but just wanted to highlight this as this is something totally new and unheard of, given all the prior inquiries into Modi's life. But on a side note, if you really wanted it to be an honest conversation regarding unknown facets of Modi's life, you could have questioned him about his wife, who's still around, you know. Anyway, moving on. See, I know Modi doesn't have a cordial relationship with data. Look at him throw random data at you about RSS-affiliated organizations.
Like some volunteers established an organization called Seva Bharti. This organization served the slums and settlements where the poorest people live, which they call service communities. To my knowledge, they run approximately 125,000 service projects without any government assistance, solely through community support. Similarly, some volunteers nurtured by RSS are dedicated to serving tribal communities through Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram. They live among the tribal people, working for their welfare. They have established over 70,000 one-teacher schools in remote tribal regions. Some volunteers have founded Vidya Bharati to revolutionize education. Today, they run nearly 25,000 schools. educating around 3 million students.
As I watched this, I knew instinctively that these must be fact-checked. So I set out on the task. I went to the Seva Bharati website and could find evidence of only about 42,000 projects or programs listed on their websites. As per Modi, that number was 125,000. Similarly, on the website of Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram, I could find evidence of about 2,301 teacher schools. As per Modi, that number is 70,000. In case of Vidya Bharati, I could find evidence of about 1,000 plus schools in tribal areas, 211 schools in border areas, and 7 army schools. Can someone tell me how does that add up to 25,000 schools suddenly? So you get the drift. See, I don't know where he gets his data from. And I'm not even saying that he's wrong. It's possible that those organizations didn't update their website. But it's been 1 week since the release of your podcast, where Modi made all such bombastic claims about these organizations. So they should have updated it by now, no? Now you see, Mr. Fridman, the way this is going, this video is never gonna end. It surely will become longer than the original podcast. And my worry is that I'm neither Lex Fridman nor Narendra Modi, and no one, including you, is gonna watch this, even if it's 1 hour long. So I can't be nitpicking like this anymore and must try to limit my response to those parts of your podcast which, to my mind, are the most dishonest. And for the purposes of coherence and chronology, I will break from the chronology of your podcast and address only these 3 major points. 1, Modi equating the Mughal rule to the British colonial rule. 2, your bizarre question equating Gandhi and Modi, putting them at the same level, at the same pedestal, and Modi's telling answer. And finally, number 3, your flimsy questions on the Gujarat riots, and of course, Modi's dishonest answers. There's several other moments of patent dishonesty and blatant lies, but I'll leave those for more accomplished YouTubers to respond to. With my limitations, I will only address these 3 points apart from the ones I've already discussed earlier. So let's go. Number 1.
Another key factor to consider is India's fight for independence. India was ruled by the Mughals, the British, and several other foreign powers. Despite being bound by the shackles of colonial rule for centuries, the flame of independence burned brightly. In every corner and nook of India, never fading, always fueling the desire for freedom.
You see that? What a dishonest guy. Quietly slipping in his agenda, distorting history. I mean, it's amazing. While it's true that the first Mughal Babur came to India as a foreign invader from Central Asia, but later on Mughals made India their home. Their generations continue to live here till today. Let's understand this. Babur defeated Ibrahim Lodi, the Sultan of Delhi at the time, at the first battle of Panipat in 1526 and laid the foundation for the Mughal Empire. So it all started with Babur in 1526. Babur died 4 years later. His 22-year-old son Humayun, who was born in 1508 in Kabul, he ascended to the throne. So let's just say the first 2 Mughals were foreign invaders indeed, born to foreign parents in foreign land. However, Akbar, who was regarded as one of the greatest rulers in the history, not just in India, but amongst historians around the world, and popularly known as Akbar the Great, was born in modern-day Sindh in Pakistan, which was still Hindustan back in those times, inside a Hindu fortress, where Humayun had taken refuge after being ousted for some time by Sher Shah Suri. But let's still put Akbar aside as a foreigner, based on his being born to foreign parents, even though he was born in India. But things took a dramatic turn thereafter. Akbar married a local Hindu princess, popularly known as Jodha Bai, and their son, Jahangir, the fourth generation successor to the Mughal throne, was surely 50% Hindustani at the very least. Thereafter, Jahangir married Jagat Gosai, another Hindu princess, and their son Shah Jahan, who was the fifth Mughal emperor, was at least 75% Hindustani, Indian, by any theory of ancestry you may want to apply. He ascended to the Mughal throne in 1628. So 102 years since its establishment in 1526, and 4 generations later, the Mughal empire was as much Hindustani or Indian as could be. And there were 15 more Mughal emperors to follow after Shah Jahan. If they're still to be referred as foreign invaders, then by that logic, America, Australia, and New Zealand are still under the rule of foreign invaders. No? The key thing to be seen here is that Mughals weren't draining the Indian economy and sending the loot abroad to some other seat of power, which is the key element of colonial rule. In fact, during the Mughal period, India's economy was so significant, it was the largest in the world. India contributed around 25% of the global GDP at that time. And that was the reason why the Europeans were desperately looking for the sea route to India and ended up discovering America. That's another story, however. But for Modi to say that all Mughals were foreigners, that's just not correct. And for him to refer to the battles being waged against the Mughals as freedom struggle is propaganda of the worst kind. There could not have been freedom struggles by any stretch of the imagination. A battle for more territory or supremacy at best. In fact, events from 1857, that is more than 300 years after the establishment of Mughal Empire, during what is widely known as India's first war of independence, will drive home the point I'm making. See, by 1857, the Mughal Empire was on the verge of extinction. A frail 81-year-old Bahadur Shah Zafar, a 12th generation Mughal and the 20th emperor of the Mughal dynasty, was only a titular ruler, and his authority was limited to the walled city of Old Delhi. The East India Company had spread its tentacles to most part of the Indian subcontinent and was the dominant political and military power at the time. The company had the authority to collect taxes from Delhi and maintain a military force there, and paid the frail old Mughal emperor a paltry pension. In 1857, there was widespread rebellion against the rule of East India Company, particularly in the form of revolt by Indian soldiers in the company's army at various places across north, central, eastern part of the present-day India. One such rebellion began on 10th May 1857 in the garrison town of Meerut, 40 miles northeast of Delhi. The rebelling soldiers were a mix of both Hindus and Muslims, quickly reached Delhi and declared the frail 81-year-old Bahadur Shah Zafar as the emperor of Hindustan. Now, can you imagine that? The soldiers rebelling against the foreign colonial power and installing another foreign ruler? Obviously not. They did so because in their mind, Mughals were local rulers. But Modi would have you believe otherwise. Anyway, next up.
If we look at the historical foundation of modern India, along with yourself, Mahatma Gandhi is one of the most important humans to have ever lived, but certainly one of the most important humans to the history of India. What do you admire about Mahatma Gandhi?
Mr. Fridman, if this was a serious, honest conversation, you wouldn't be asking such questions. As I see it, there are only two possibilities. One, that you don't know about Gandhi or Modi or both, in which case you wouldn't ask such a question. Or two, you understand both Gandhi and Modi well, in which case again you wouldn't ask such a question. But fact is, you did ask that question. And I can't help but think that you were instructed to do so. Because just like your opening remark in the podcast about fasting for Modi, I'll wait for you to tell the world how Modi's team made you ask this question. Because nobody in their right mind, absolutely nobody, with even the most basic understanding of Indian history would ever put Gandhi and Modi on the same pedestal. Not even his most ardent fanboys, commonly known as Andhbhakts. In fact, they hate Gandhi, as does Modi. The visceral hate RSS and its cadres have for Gandhi is no secret. Don't forget what Modi told you earlier.
When you observe these initiatives, you'll see how, over the past 100 years, the RSS has dedicated itself with the discipline and devotion of a seeker, staying away from the glare of mainstream attention. I feel blessed to gain life's values from such a sacred organization. Through the RSS, I found a life of purpose.
So let me just quickly connect the dots for you. Prior to and post India's bloody partition and the creation of Pakistan in August 1947, there were large-scale rioting and killing all over the land. Gandhi, being the man he was, he went on peace marches and fasts to stop the rioting and killings, particularly killing of Muslims who had stayed back in India. The RSS was headed then by Madhav Sadashiv Golwalkar. And both RSS and Golwalkar believed that with the creation of Pakistan, there was no place for Muslims in India. As Gandhi continued to campaign for communal harmony, Golwalkar made a speech, as noted by historian Ram Guha, in which he declared that no power on earth could keep Muslims in India. They would have to quit the country. It was December of 1947, and Golwalkar made an open threat to Gandhi. He said, and I quote, "We have the means whereby such men can be immediately silenced. But it is our tradition not to be inimical to Hindus. If we are compelled, we will have to resort to that course too." The following month, that is January 1948, Gandhi was killed by a Hindu extremist with connections to the RSS. In the aftermath of Gandhi's death, the RSS was banned and Golwalkar was arrested. The ban on RSS was lifted a year and a half later, but Golwalkar spent only 6 months in jail and was released for want of evidence. He went on to be the longest serving head of RSS. Do you know Modi has many books to his name, which includes an adulatory biography on Golwalkar? But he has never written a chapter on Gandhi anywhere. Likewise for Savarkar, another guy who was arrested for Gandhi's assassination and put on trial. A co-conspirator turned approver testified against him. But since Nathuram Godse said he had acted on his own without any guidance or supervision, and since the approver's testimony couldn't be independently corroborated, Savarkar too was let off. And what did Modi do? Modi deliberately chose Savarkar's 140th birth anniversary, just a couple of years ago, to inaugurate the new parliament building. So much for the love of Gandhi. See, it's well known in the political and bureaucratic circles that it's Modi's resolute wish to usurp Gandhi as the father of the nation. He even had his dear friend Donald Trump promote that idea. Here, listen.
Great gentleman and a great leader. And I remember India before, now not intimately, but I remember India before, and it was very torn. There was a lot of dissension, a lot of fighting, and he brought it all together. Like a father would bring it together. And maybe he's the father of India. We'll call him the father of India. I think that's not so bad. But he brought things together, and you don't hear that anymore.
And now, it was your turn to push that very pungent idea that somehow in some parallel universe, Modi could be put on the same pedestal as Gandhi. Did you notice that in his 5-minute long answer to your question, Not once did Modi say that I admire this or that about Gandhi. Not just that, the utter lack of any visible embarrassment, any humility, any honesty. Saying, hey, please don't compare me to Gandhi. I haven't done anything as great as him yet. Not once did he say that. In fact, the first few lines of his answer are extremely telling. Let's watch it again.
If we look at the historical foundation of modern India, along with yourself, Mahatma Gandhi is one of the most important humans to have ever lived, but certainly one of the most important humans to the history of India. What do you admire about Mahatma Gandhi?
As I had mentioned before, I was born in Gujarat, and Gujarati is my mother tongue. Mahatma Gandhi was also born in Gujarat. His native language was Gujarati too. He pursued a career as an attorney and lived overseas for several years. He had plenty of great opportunities.
What he left unsaid there was that I never got such opportunities, but still here I am. Anyway, to compare that answer to what he said about your question on Ramanujam.
Me, as an engineer, as a person who loves mathematics, I have to ask. Srinivasa Ramanujan is an Indian mathematician from a century ago. He's widely considered to be one of the greatest mathematicians of all time. Self-taught, grew up in poverty. You have often spoken about him. What do you find inspiring about him?
Look, I deeply respect him, and everyone in my country respects him as well.
I hope you see the stark difference. Though Modi did go on to say that Gandhi will be relevant in the coming centuries, blah, 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 but all lip service. Trust me, for Modi, the most unpleasant chore associated with being Prime Minister of India is to frequently pay homage to Gandhi and always talk nicely about him no matter where he goes. Anyway, moving on.
You've been through your career and through your life, you have seen a lot of difficult situations in the history of India. One of them, the 2002 Gujarat riots. They're one of the most challenging periods of modern Indian history, when there was violence between Hindu and Muslim citizens of the Gujarat that led to over 1,000 deaths. It revealed the intensity of religious tensions in the region. You were, as you mentioned, Chief Minister of Gujarat at the time. Looking back, what lessons do you draw from that time? And we should also say that India's independent Supreme Court upheld twice, in 12 and 22, that you had no involvement in the violence of the 2002 Gujarat riots. But I was wondering if you could speak to the broad lessons you draw from that time.
Look, regarding your first point, when you humbly said that you don't know what you're doing, that you're not good at this, I disagree and personally feel you put in tremendous care. You've done extensive research and have dived deeply into every small detail. So, I think you've done very well. And all the efforts you put in during our conversation and in all your conversations are appreciated. And rather than simply interviewing me, I feel you're trying to deeply understand India. That's why I strongly feel there's genuine honesty in your sincere effort to uncover the truth. And for that sincere approach, I genuinely congratulate you.
Thank you.
Mr. Fridman, is this what an honest conversation looks like in your part of the world? See, Gujarat riots of 2002 were not just riots. It came to be known as the Gujarat pogrom of 2002. In a state with less than 10% Muslim population, 76% of those killed in the riots were Muslims, as per official figures. 790 out of the 1,044 killed as per official records. Unofficially, though, over 2,000 people were killed and nearly 90% of them were Muslims. So that wasn't a riot, was it? In fact, there's a UK government report stating that the violence in Gujarat showed all the hallmarks of an ethnic cleansing. See, India has seen similar communal tragedies, but the Gujarat pogrom has no parallels. From a 73-year-old ex-parliamentarian to a sitting member of the assembly were killed too. At least one judge was killed and another forced to flee India. Number of senior police officers of the rank of retired DGP, the head of the state police, a retired DGP going to jail, or a senior IPS officer going to jail. And a lot of these events continued to unfold many years after the tragic events of 2002. Why? Because the whole effort was to hide the truth. And for Modi to say with such ease that the judiciary found him to be innocent. But the fact is that Modi never went on trial. I was at least happy to see that in his original Hindi response, Modi is unable to finish off that sentence saying the courts found him to be completely innocent. Watch this.
लेकिन न्यायालय ने उसको बहुत डिटेल में देखा है, लंबे अरसे, और उस समय हमारे जो विरोध के लोग हैं वो सरकार में थे और वो तो चाहते थे कि हम पर जितने आरोप लगे थे हमको सजा हो जाए, लेकिन उनके लाखों कोशिश के बाद भी जुडिशरी ने पूरी तरह डिटेल में उसका एनालिसिस किया, दो बार किया और पूरी तरह निर्दोष जिन लोगों ने गुनाह किया था उनके लिए न्यायालय ने अपना काम किया है.
The only sanction Modi had to face was that almost the entire Western world declared him persona non grata. And he wasn't allowed to travel to the US and most of Europe until he was voted in as the Prime Minister of India in 2014. Modi's complicity in the Gujarat pogrom in the eyes of the Western world was so clear that even in the midst of his war against the Islamic extremist fringe, globally, the Republican President Bush did not ease Modi's travel restrictions. And at least that should have guided you and your line of questioning. After all, an event of this magnitude deserved better, more honest questioning, Mr. Fridman. So that's it. As I said before, I won't go into the other patent dishonesties and blatant lies in your podcast and leave it for some other commentator to deal with them. As it is, it's a no-brainer that there's not a single person in Modi's inner coterie or the larger cabinet who can stand up to him, say no to him, criticize him. He just has a huge entourage of yes men surrounding him on all sides, as is the case with all despots. And he lies blatantly when he says that he welcomes criticism. Also, the fact that someone like Modi could come to power in India is a testimony, in fact was a testimony to the strength of the Indian democracy. A rags to riches political story like that is still not possible in the US, and you know that. But the same democracy that catapulted Modi to the top is being destroyed by him brick by brick. You just need to Google with keywords Modi and democracy and see what you get. Just read it up. Before I end this, I must commend you for at least the one semi-honest question about why India is lagging behind US, and you forgot to mention China, therefore dishonest. So why is India lagging behind US and China in the field of AI? Modi once again gave a long-winded, dishonest answer. I will tell you the truth. India has lagged behind in this very critical race, which has only materialized in the last decade or so, which is exactly the time when Modi and co have ruled India. And that's precisely why we have lagged behind. Because Mr. Modi's inscientific temperament, because Modi and his men have kept Indians busy with Ram temple, Krishna temple, and now with an interesting plot twist about Aurangzeb's tomb. Who's Aurangzeb, you might ask? Remember we discussed the 5 generations of Mughals earlier? Well, he was the 6th and the longest serving Mughal emperor.